What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode on EI Entertainment Studios, back at it with another debate episode. So today's debate episode, we're going to be talking about legendary Godzilla versus the Hydra. So here's the plan, folks. We're going to go over these two giant monsters, we're going to analyze them and all their facts, and once we're done analyzing them, we're going to put them up against each other in a death battle. So, without further ado, let's begin with the Hydra. So, the Hydra is a monstrous, multi-headed reptile from the myths of ancient Greece. So essentially we are talking about Greek mythology. It made its lair in Lake Lerna, and according to the myth, beneath the lake was an entrance to the Underworld, and the Hydra was its guardian. Most of the time, it stayed in the spring of Amymone, a deep cave, only coming out to terrorize neighboring villages. So essentially, that backstory is sufficient for this debate video, and what we're going to do is we're going to skim over the abilities really quick. We're going to go over everything else. We're going to come back and analyze each ability deeply. So a quick skim would be as follows: large head, which is Immortal, Regeneration 241, Acid Blood, and Acid Breath. Territorial level is maximum, aggression is maximum, biome is ocean, and height is 100 meters. Okay, so let's go back to the abilities and let's essentially analyze them. So the first one is the large head. So essentially its main head is considered to be immortal in Greek mythology, meaning it can't die. And so essentially, no matter what you do to that head, whether you use atomic breath, whether you try to cut it off, whatever it is, the head is going to grow back, and it's not going to die. Which essentially is going to make it really difficult in this debate video, and we're going to get to that, and it's going to be very interesting. The second one is regeneration. Now, what do we mean by regeneration? It means to get re-amped up and re-leveled up to its original state, but there's a catch. It's considered to be 2 for 1. And so what does that mean? So let's say that one of Hydra's heads are cut off. Instead of it growing back, because one of them was cut off, 2 of them will now grow back. So 2 for 1. For each one head, 2 heads are grown back in total, which makes it obviously worse for the opponent every time it damages it. Additionally, this should kind of remind you of the xenomorphs from Alien, how their blood is essentially acid, and if it falls on the opponent or the victim, it burns through their flesh, or essentially burns through anything almost. And so the acid blood is essentially the same concept, where Hydra's blood, or if the blood does come out and touches a surface or flesh, it melts things because it's acid. And we also have acid breath. His breath, the Hydra's breath, is acidic, which it could burn flesh, and that is a big deal. Alright, let us continue now with Godzilla. So again, this is the legendary Godzilla, so this is the more recent live action Godzilla film, although we're going to be getting a new Godzilla from Toho, which I'm very excited for. So Godzilla is an ancient alpha predator who was awakened by a nuclear bomb. It protects Earth as the ultimate force of nature. And so the abilities, again, we're going to do a quick skim. The abilities are atomic breath, combat, agility, burning ability. The territorial level is maximum, aggression is maximum, biome is Earth, and Godzilla's height is 120 meters tall. Now, going back to the abilities, first one we have is the atomic breath. And the atomic breath is the classical OG, standing for original, ability, where it's essentially nuclear fission and fire in one, and it's a massive blast of fire that just blasts through everything. And so that would be the atomic breath, and to be specific for legendary Godzilla, it's going to be blue. Combat. This specific Godzilla is known by far to be one of the best Godzillas for combat, alongside probably Godzilla Final Wars. But essentially, he can kick well, he can claw, he can punch, he can tail whip, he can ram, he can juke, as we saw in Godzilla vs. Kong. he is there. His combat is maximum. Maximum, maximum. Agility. He's very, very agile, meaning he can move pretty quickly. His stamina is there. I mean, he is literally the only current known Godzilla to survive after a blast of the nuclear bomb, and not only that, the oxygen destroyer. So definitely he is up there. We also have the burning ability. Now this requires two catalysts, Mothra's entire essence and an extra nuclear bomb. And essentially, when you combine those two, meaning he has more radiation in his body than he already has, alongside Mothra's energy, he goes into a burning state where he's literally melting down. It doesn't affect his health, unlike the older version of Burning Godzilla, but he essentially blows up and everything melts around him. And that's how he killed Ghidorah. So we're going to assume all the catalysts are present for this debate. Okay, so that's going to sum up both of these, essentially, monsters. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put them up against each other in a death battle. And how we're going to start is going first, we're going to do far range. Now, the reason why we do far range is simply because it limits a lot of abilities. And we're trying to see if they were to be fighting in far range, who would have the advantage and who would win. Because technically, both are possible. There might be a far range battle and a close range battle. So the limits are 700 meters. That means there's absolutely no physical contact within the monsters. So any ability that requires physical contact to be effective is cancelled out. So let's begin with the Hydra. So the first one is the large immortal head. That's not really a physical thing in the sense that that's just his own ability. That's fine. Regeneration 241. Again, doesn't really have to do with attacking, so that's fine. Acid blood. I really doubt the blood is going to be able to travel 700 meters. So we're going to go ahead and just say that's fine, but it's not really going to be effective. And acid breath. Yes, his breath is acidic, but it does not have the ability to go 700 meters. And as if you're a returning viewer, you know I've had a lot of issues with mythological monsters, specifically Greek and Norse, of gods or monsters who they basically lack any far range abilities for the most part. And so this is the case again. And so this is pretty rare. When I use kaijus, let's say from Gamera, or a combination of like these weird hybrid creatures or other Godzilla monsters, they do fine in the far range, but the Greek mythology has been definitely struggling. And whenever a kaiju, we could call Hydra a kaiju, he's a monster. When a kaiju lacks any ability to fight far range, that basically means a automatic loss, at least for that one part of, or we could say a forfeit for that one section. So Hydra will be forfeiting the far range. And let's say if they were to go to battle, well, okay, he has the Immortal Head, Regeneration 241. What's going to happen? Godzilla's going to keep on using the atomic breath, more heads are going to be growing. Godzilla is the one who's actually giving the assault. And so Hydra can't really do anything. Just growing there. So there is no defense there, or offense there, essentially, fully from Hydra. So Hydra is going to lose. Okay. So 1-0 in terms for Godzilla. Now close range is going to be interesting. Now let's take this into consideration. Hydra is 100 meters tall, we said, and Godzilla is 120. So Godzilla is a little bit, not significantly, but it's a decent amount. 20 meters isn't too big, but it's also enough to be noticeable. So he's definitely going to be higher. And in terms of girth and pure strength, obviously that's going to go to Godzilla because of his size. Now, honestly, within the water, both are very good. Godzilla is very quick, very fast in the water, and there's going to be a pretty good clash. Here's a problem, though, for Godzilla. Every time he gnaws, or hits, or whatever he does to the flesh of Hydra, even, let's say, the head gets cut off, that acid blood, it's going to leak into the water, and it's going to be he's gonna eventually drink that or breathe into it with his gills, and that's gonna damage his body significantly. And given that his head grows back 2-for-1 for Hydra, and that the likelihood of him getting bit within the acid breath makes it much more likely, and so that's going to be a lot of damage to Godzilla. And assuming, let's say, that the burning ability is active, well, okay, he initiates it and blows up extremely hot temperatures. Well, everything's going to get blown up, the acid is going to fall over Godzilla, and whatever heads were cut off, the main head is Immortal, whatever head gets cut off is going to grow back double. So if 8 heads were grown off, we're getting 16. So that's a massive problem for Godzilla, and so that's going to be useless. Essentially, in face-to-face or close range, Godzilla will lose. Simple as that. He will lose against Hydra. And so that becomes 1-1. What do we do? We go to overtime, and we're just going to rate them off their abilities. Again, Hydra has Large Head Immortal, Regeneration 2-for-1, Acid Blood, Acid Breath. Godzilla is Atomic Breath, Combat, Agility, Burning Ability. Now, although Godzilla's abilities are great for far range, they weren't so good for close range, which is usually the more common type of fighting. So I'm going to have to give it to Hydra for overtime, becoming 2-1. Hydra's going to win. Obviously, you could debate me in the comment section below, but this is what I believe is going to be the outcome. Also, leave requests in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great and wonderful day.